Welcome in, everyone, to Lively Lewis Stories.
That's right, we're back with even more awesome adventures with Levi and Ivy.
Set your storytime meter to fun and get ready to join the Lively Lewis crew.
All you need is your imagination and...
Off we go! I can't wait to see where our story takes us today.
Have you ever wanted to get more Lively Lewis in your life?
Well, we've got you covered.
Grab an adult and zoom over to livelylewisshop.com.
Or just click on the link in our show notes.
Enough about that. Let's get to today's super Lively Lewis story.
The story you're about to enjoy was inspired by Alyse. Thank you so much for your amazing idea. Levi kicked a soccer ball to his friend as they played before school began on a cool fall morning. Ivy chased her friends around as they played tag in the playground. "Tag, you're it!" called out Ivy as she reached out and tagged her friend on the shoulder. She knew she needed to run or risk being the tagger again. Ivy took off toward the slide and hid behind it to rest for a moment. As she was catching her breath, she looked over toward the tall elm tree that grew at the edge of her school playground. Normally, kids were either sitting under the tree reading, playing quiet games, or drawing. The shade of the tree was a nice place to sit and enjoy a lovely day. But that day, Ivy couldn't help but notice a little girl that looked a bit out of place. She had never seen her before and felt like maybe she needed a friend. Ivy motioned to her friends that she was playing tag with that she was taking a break from their game as she walked toward the elm tree. As Ivy got closer, the little girl looked up and saw her. "Hi, my name is Ivy. What's your name?" asked Ivy as she took a seat on the ground next to the little girl. "I'm Alyse," whispered the little girl in such a quiet voice that Ivy had to ask her to repeat herself. "It's nice to meet you, Alyse," replied Ivy. "Are you new here?" Alyse nodded her head, still looking uncomfortable with her new surroundings. Ivy decided to try and make Alice's situation better, and she knew the one thing that could make any situation better was friends. That's when Ivy looked around the playground, spotted Levi playing soccer, and called to him. Levi ran right over and asked Ivy what she needed. After introducing Levi to Alyse, the bell rang and it was time to head inside and start school. As they walked Alyse inside, they talked a bit more. "My family and I just moved to town," Alyse began. "We didn't live too far away, but it's still different from my old school. My old school was the best, and none of my friends are here, so that's why I'm kind of sad today." "I can imagine it's a lot to deal with all at once," said Levi. "We can't make this school like your old school, but I'm sure you'll find lots of things that you do like here, too." "He's right. This is a great school," added Ivy. "And as for your old friends, I'm sure you'll get to see them often since you don't live too far away. But since you're here, we can help you make some new friends. Levi and I are happy to be the first ones if that works for you." Levi and Ivy smiled at Alyse as they watched her frown start to turn into a smile. "I'd really like that a lot," said Alyse, smiling for the first time since getting to school that morning. As the three friends walked down the hall, Alyse explained that she had already met her teacher the day before with her parents, and she seemed really nice. Alyse was in kindergarten and knew there would be lots of fun activities, experiences, and friends that were waiting for her in her new classroom. But she just couldn't shake the feeling of being the new kid. As Levi and Ivy were telling her about a few fun things about school, like pizza party Fridays, the best place to sit in the auditorium during assemblies, and which swing goes the highest in the playground, Alyce's teacher walked up to the group. "Hi, Mrs. Sweet," called out Levi and Ivy. They both had her as their kindergarten teacher and knew how lucky Alyse was to be in her class. "Hi, Levi and Ivy." "Hi, Alyse. Are you ready to have a great first day?" asked Miss Sweet. "I have a class full of students that are very excited to meet you." "I am, Mrs. Sweet. Thanks to the new friends I already met," said Alyse, motioning to Levi and Ivy. "Oh, yes, you met two of our school's nicest kiddos for sure," replied Mrs. Sweet. Then, as they were finishing their conversation and ready to head off to their own classes, Levi and Ivy heard a booming voice singing from the end of the hallway. "Hello, Alyse, it is so good to see you," sang the lovely voice. It was the school's music teacher, Miss B. Alyce's smile got even bigger when she turned and saw Miss B. It was very obvious that Alyse knew her and was very excited to see her. "Miss B!" called out Alyse as she ran over and gave the teacher a big hug. "I hoped I would see you today." "Hi, Miss B," said Ivy. Do you know Alyse? Oh, yes. I've known Alyse for over 2 years now, answered Miss B, taking Alyse's hand and spinning her around. Excellent form as always. Ivy and Levi couldn't help but notice that Alyse was very light on her feet, meaning she looked very comfortable dancing. After Miss B gave her another spin, Alyse did a few ballet moves and ended with a bow. Just perfect, Alyse, said Miss B. I can tell you've been practicing. Practicing? Dancing? What's going on here? Asked Levi, looking a bit confused. It was then that Miss B explained that she knew Alyse's parents and that she had been teaching Alyse dance for the last 2 years since she lived only a few towns away. You're a music teacher and a dance teacher? Asked Ivy, looking very impressed. I also make a pretty amazing chocolate chip cookies, giggled Miss B. I like lots of things, including all forms of performing arts. All my likes make me. I started dancing when I was Alyse's age, and I've never stopped. Miss B did a fancy spin and gave Alyse a big high five. I ran over here before class started to make sure I let you know about the kindergarten talent show that's coming up next week, started Miss B. I know it's happening soon, but I thought you could do one of the dances we've been practicing for the last few weeks. I know you'll do a great job, and it could be a great way to meet some new friends, too. Levi and Ivy both looked at Alyse and thought they knew exactly what she was going to say. She seemed so shy and not quite comfortable with her new school just yet, that she would likely say no, but what she said next was a surprise to them all. Absolutely! I'd love to be in the talent show, shouted Alyse as she danced around a bit more in the hallway. Great! I'll give Miss Sweet the form for your parents to sign so you can take it home today and drop it off with me tomorrow. And I'll see you for dance practice tonight, said Miss B as she danced away down the hall. It was time for Levi and Ivy to get to class. Alyse too. So they all said their goodbyes, and Levi and Ivy wished Alyse the best first day ever. We'll see you at recess, called out Ivy to Alyse as she ran into her classroom, which was just down the hall. Bye, called back Alyse as she took a deep breath and walked into her new classroom with Mrs. Sweet. After a couple of hours in class, it was time for recess. Levi and Ivy waited patiently outside for Alyse. When they saw her at the door, they ran over to see how her first day was going. Mrs. Sweet is great, and all the kids seem nice, but I still feel like the new kid. I don't know anyone in my class, but I will after I do the talent show next week, said Alyse with a smile as she practiced a few dance moves. What do you mean? Asked Ivy. Well, at my old school, everyone knew me as Alyse the dancer, said Alyse as she spun around. So once the other kindergartners see me dance the talent show, then everyone will know me. You know? I guess so, said Ivy, looking at Levi. I'm going to practice a little bit. I'll see you both later on, said Alyse as she leapt away toward the elm tree where Ivy had first seen her that morning. Don't you think there has to be other things about Alyse other than dancing that she can share with new classmates so they can get to know her better? Asked Levi. I'm sure there is, but it seems that she's most comfortable when she's dancing, said Ivy. So when she's comfortable, she'll be much more likely to make new friends. If it works for her, then we should support it. I think the talent show will be a great way for her to build up her confidence and meet some new friends. Levi nodded in agreement with Ivy. Then the two of them ran off to play. As the days went by that week, Alyse did nothing but practice her talent show dance at recess. She kept to herself mostly, not interacting with any of her new classmates. The only time Alyse would talk to anyone was when she saw Levi and Ivy, and as they talked, Levi and Ivy got to learn a lot more about her. Alyse told them about her dog, Coco, that she loved strawberries, and how spring was her favorite season. Alyse could juggle a little bit. She loved mermaids, science was her favorite subject in school, and the beach was her favorite place to go on vacation. Alyse is really cool, said Levi as he walked back into school after recess with Ivy. I know, replied Ivy. I can't wait for her to share all the stuff we know about her with some of the other kids in her kindergarten class. But when that happens, it is all up to her. She'll know when the time is right and when she's comfortable. And as far as Alyse, though, the right time would be after the talent show when all of the classmates saw how well she could dance. Then they would want to be friends with her. They would all come up to her and ask questions about her performance, and before she knew it, she'd have a bunch of friends, just like at her old school. At least that's what she thought. But at that point, she had Levi and Ivy by her side, and they were all she needed right then. She would practice her dance in front of them and ask for their honest opinions. She did it over and over again to the point that Levi and Ivy knew every move by heart. However, However, they couldn't do them as gracefully and elegantly as Alyse. Alyse, you're the best dancer I've ever seen, added Ivy. Amazing! You'll win the talent show for sure, added Levi. Oh, thank you so much, said Alyse, a bit out of breath from dancing. You two are the best. I hope I can find more great friends like you. You definitely will, answered Ivy. You're such a cool kid, and even if someone doesn't like dance, there are a lot of other things that you'll have in common with a lot of the kids at the school. You just have to build up your confidence to go up to someone, say hello, and tell them a little bit about yourself. Well, I'm planning on letting my dance speak for itself, said Alyse. After the talent show, I'm sure I'll have lots of friends. Ivy and Levi both looked at each other. They just wished Alyse could see that she was more than a dancer. But again, they wanted her to be comfortable and hoped that after the talent show, everything would work out just as Alyse had hoped. And they didn't have to wait very much longer because the kindergarten talent show was the next day. Levi, Ivy, and every kindergartner and their families crowded into the school auditorium the next night. Good luck, said Levi and Ivy to Alyse as she warmed up backstage. We know you'll do great, said Ivy. We'll be cheering you on from the front row. We sure will, added Levi, and my mom said I'm supposed to tell you, break a leg. But I told her that didn't sound very nice. Alyse laughed as she told Levi thank you and explained that saying break a leg to a stage performer means you wish them good luck. Levi smiled and gave Alyse a thumbs up as he walked to his seat with Ivy. Miss B walked out to start the talent show, and Alyse was the first one up. As the crowd cheered Levi and Ivy the loudest of all, Alyse walked to center stage and got ready to begin. Her music started, and Levi and Ivy knew every move that was coming up. Well, at least they thought they did. Alyse first did a few spins, some fancy ballet moves, then she readied herself for a big leap. Levi and Ivy liked this move the best and were excited to see it performed on a big stage. But as soon as Alyse left the ground, Levi and Ivy saw that something was wrong. Alyse looked like she slipped at takeoff, causing her to be off balance. Then instead of landing on her feet, she stumbled and fell. And as soon as she hit the wooden stage, she grabbed her ankle and cried out in pain. Alyse's parents ran up on stage and joined Miss B, who had already ran to Alyse's side. The gasp from the audience when that fall happened was overwhelming, and everyone began to chatter about what was going on. Was Alyse okay? What had happened? Would she be able to finish her dance? It didn't take long for everyone to realize that Alyse had really hurt her ankle and would not be able to finish her dance. Her dad picked her up and carried her off stage as the audience clapped, showing their support, and shouted out that they hoped she would be okay. Being so close to the stage in the front row, Levi and Ivy could hear Alyse say as she was being carried backstage, "I'm so embarrassed." This made them feel terrible and made Levi think maybe his pre-show "good luck" comment had something to do with it. "Oh no," said Levi, turning to Ivy. "Maybe that break a leg saying was wrong. Maybe me saying that caused Alyse to get hurt." "That's not possible, Levi," said Ivy. "I'm sure she'll be fine." With all the commotion of Alyse getting hurt, the talent show, of course, came to a stop. Levi and Ivy felt like they had to do something. Alyse was their friend and wanted nothing more than to show her new classmates something she really loved to do. Now, instead of everyone talking about what a great dancer she was, they were all talking about her fall. Miss B made an announcement that there would be a brief pause in the talent show while Alyse was taken care of. It was then that Ivy grabbed Levi and ran up on stage with him. They asked Miss B if they could please fill the time while she got the other acts ready and made sure Alyse was okay. Miss B said yes, thanking Levi and Ivy for their help. Ivy quickly grabbed the microphone from Miss B and ran to the center stage, quieting the crowd who were all still talking about Alyse's fall. "Hi everyone, I'm Ivy, and this is my brother Levi. Our friend Alyse was the one who just fell on stage," said Ivy. "She's an amazing dancer and wanted to share that with you tonight. Now that she can't, we wanted to fill in for her. Alyse is such an amazing dancer that we learned to dance just by watching her practice," said Levi. "She loves dancing so much that her enthusiasm for it is contagious. And even though Levi and I aren't good dancers at all, we hope that you'd all enjoy this. And you too, Alyse," said Ivy, hoping that wherever Alyse was backstage, she could hear them and knew they were thinking of her. Alyse's dance music started and Levi and Ivy began to dance. Well, at least they were trying to dance. They jumped around on stage, twirling and spinning, but nowhere near as good as Alyse. They smiled and laughed as they leapt and moved their arms. They were having a good time. The crowd saw the fun they were having and laughed right along, clapping and cheering at each move. When the dance was over, the crowd applauded, and Levi and Ivy walked off stage to find Alyse sitting in a chair with an ice pack on her ankle. "Are you okay?" asked Ivy. "My parents think I broke my ankle," Alyse said with tears in her eyes. "My dad went to get the car, and my mom is talking to Miss B. We're headed to get an x-ray when we leave." "Oh no, I hope you'll be all right." "I will be," said Alyse. "This type of thing can happen when you're a dancer. But what I didn't think would happen was you two getting up on stage and dancing. It was not good, silly, really funny," said Ivy with a smile, interrupting Alyse. "It was amazing," shouted Alyse. "Wow, thank you," said Ivy. "Why did you do that for me?" asked Alyse. "We heard you say you were embarrassed when your dad was carrying you off the stage," said Levi. "Then everyone started talking about what had happened in the crowd. We thought getting up there and dancing would be a good way to take the attention off your fall," added Ivy. "Thank you so much," said Alyse as her dad walked up to take her to the car. "Yes, thank you both for being such good friends to Alyse," said her dad. "I hope you're feeling better soon," said Levi and Ivy as they waved goodbye to Alyse. In school the next day, Alyse wasn't there. Levi and Ivy wondered what was going on and asked Mrs. Sweet. She told them that Alyse would be back the next day and that she was getting used to having a broken ankle, which would have her in a wheelchair for about a month. The next day, when Levi and Ivy saw Alyse, she was being wheeled down the hall by Mrs. Sweet and Miss B. They ran over to their friend along with a bunch of Alyce's classmates. They all crowded around and welcomed her back to school. Levi and Ivy then watched as Alyce's classmate asked her about what happened and how she was feeling. "I thought your dancing was great," said a boy in her class. "Even your fall looked pretty cool." Alyse laughed. "Thank you." Trying to make her feel good, another classmate said, "Each grade has a talent show every year, so you can practice a whole bunch and dance at the first grade show next year." "I really liked your mermaid dance costume," said another girl. "I love mermaids." "Me too," replied Alyse. "And the beach." "I love the beach," said a boy in her class. Alyse smiled as she looked around at everyone who was there for her. She realized in that moment that she wasn't just Alyse the dancer. She was just Alyse. And Alyse liked lots of things. That day, she would learn that she had lots in common with her classmates, and many of them would become her good friends. Levi and Ivy were so happy to watch as Alyse got to know her classmates. And they got to know her. They smiled and waved at her as they walked off to class, knowing she was surrounded by friends. At recess that day, Levi and Ivy could see how comfortable Alyse was. She talked and played with classmates and realized that she didn't just have to be a dancer. She could be a juggler, a mermaid, a scientist, a dog owner, a strawberry fanatic, or just Alyse. She was now comfortable at her new school, but she would never forget Levi and Ivy, who were the first ones to welcome her and make her feel like she was part of it all. Before recess ended, Alyse wheeled over to Levi and Ivy and thanked them for all they had done for her. Then they played together along with some friends from her class for the rest of their time outside. A month went by quickly and Alyce's ankle healed wonderfully. She was back to dancing with Miss B in no time. She practiced even harder than before, and the following year, when she was in first grade, Alyse participated in the first grade talent show and won the big prize with a dance routine that had the audience on their feet and cheering. But even more important than winning the talent show prize for dancing was the prize Alyse had already gotten from Levi, Ivy, and all her new friends. And that was friendship, which she got just for being herself. Thanks for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the story and learned a little something too.
And since we know everyone has their own story, we'd love to hear yours.
If you have an idea for a Lively Lewis story, leave a comment on our Apple Podcast review page with 5 stars, your idea, and your little one's name.
Then maybe our next adventure will be with you.
Until our next Storytime Hangout.
Thanks for listening. We can't wait to share another fun Lively Lewis story with you.